You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
One of the freedoms that I have over at the Patreon feed or on the Patreon feed is that I have one simple little criteria, little rule for a guest to be able to come on. And that is there has to be at least one tie-in to Gettysburg. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean the history. This episode that you're going to listen to now was kind of a gamble for me. I wanted to test it out. I love long-form interview style shows. And I met Yianni Barakos over at Dixon Distillery back in, I think it was April of 2019. And we took a tour of the distillery, and during the tour, he gave us, he told us about his life and how he came to open the distillery and all that jazz. And it is an inspiring story for anybody, really. And I went up to him afterwards and I said, I'd love to interview you on my show because, I mean, this is a great story, and it makes me kind of feel like a jerk for ever thinking that I was going to have a hard time with things and, things weren't worth trying, because what he overcame was tremendous. And so we interviewed, and since then we've become buddies, and he's one of the fascinating people in the continuing story of Gettysburg. There's the story of the battle, and there's all those names that we know who lived in the town, who fought the war or fought the battle. But the story of Gettysburg, like any other town, never ends. It keeps on going, and new people come and they make their mark on the history of that town. And that includes business owners. There's a lot of interesting businesses that were here before that are no longer here, that a lot of people, that entire generations of visitors have memories of. And there's no difference between then and now. People today are making a mark somehow on the history of Gettysburg with the businesses that they have, because they're helping people make memories here. And Yianni is one of those people. Now, we may be making memories when we go to Dixon, but also forgetting them at the same time because of what they serve at Dixon, and that just happens. But drink responsibly. Anyway, a lot of people, like I said, this was a gamble for me to do this because the real connection, besides the fact that he owns a business in Gettysburg, is that they grow their grain and some things on the battlefield itself. And so I thought that was kind of a cool angle too. But then we got to talking about Yianni the man and what he went through to get where he is today. And I heard from a lot of our patrons at the time, and this was one of the earlier episodes, so we didn't have a ton of a ton of patrons, but I heard from a lot of them, and they said that they loved it. They loved it because it was just two people talking about real stuff, very honestly, very openly. And Yianni's a pretty interesting guy. So I thought I would take this because I kind of polled some of our patrons, and I said, what would you recommend I would put out there to the public to hear for free, so that maybe they would consider, joining us over there and whatever, or just as a thank you because you guys listen on the free feed too, and that's important as well. So this was one that kept coming up. People really liked this, and to this day, it's probably, well, it's not yet a year since this one came out, but it goes way back to the beginning. So people, it's just popped into it flew right out of a couple of people's mouths. They were like, oh, the guy from Dixon. So anyway, here it is. Yianni from Dixon on Addressing Gettysburg. So Yianni Barakos from Dixon Distillery. One of my favorite places to go. I don't get out there often enough, though. It's not my fault. It's just I have no time.
I understand what it's like to not have time.
But when I go there, I enjoy it thoroughly. The food is great. The booze is great. And yeah, I have nothing, no complaints about the place.
I'm blushing. Thank you.
I can see that. But really, I tell all of our followers and listeners when they ask, even at Gettysburg, when people say where to go and eat, I give them 3 choices, and Mason-Dixon is always one of them.
That's appreciated. Word of mouth has been good to us, and it's how we've slowly but surely been able to build up the business.
Yeah. Now, how long have you been open?
Just over 3 years. July 1, 2016 was day one.
All right. And then before that, were you always into distilling, or how did you get into distilling?
So how I got into distilling, always been a tinker, hands-on kind of guy. I like to play with things, make things, take things apart, figure out how they work, try to put them back together. As I got older, I got better at putting them back together. But my story kind of begins before I was born. Second generation of my family born in this country. My grandparents all immigrated here from Greece.
Okay.
Tiny remote mountain villages, and I say my heritage is Greek, but more accurate is probably Greek hillbilly, because they grew what they needed. They repaired what they had. My grandfather I got to visit when I was a kid. One of my grandfather's villages. Came back, asked him a lot of questions about growing up. And at some point, he told me about how he used to work copper and would travel village to village and help repair copper pots and pans. Made him the de facto guy to help keep the still running. I had questions about this thing he described as a pot. I then ended up being given a simple diagram of a still on a cocktail napkin. And then I went home and started moonshining in my parents' garage.
Really?
Yes.
How old were you?
11.
So you're 11 years old, and from schematics on a napkin.
Correct.
You went and figured out how to make a still.
Yeah, had some gaps I had to fill in, because at one point my grandfather stopped answering questions, and his reason for stopping answering, because you're 11, you don't need to know anymore.
Yeah.
But I had garnered enough to be able to fill in the blanks.
So what was do you remember the first batch you made?
Yeah. I made Supero, which is Greek moonshine, which is made from grapes. It is pretty much the same thing as Italian grappa, just a different regional name.
And was it good?
Yeah, it was. So sidebar disclaimer, like I was an 11-year-old being like, well, I need my fix. I took great joy in building a machine that made something else.
Okay.
So yeah, I most of it ended up going to my grandfather and my great uncles, who were like, this is just like the stuff we used to have.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah.
Where'd you get the recipe?
My grandfather, but I improvised. Traditionally, you make the wine, take the leftover grape pieces, the pomace, the fruit pomace, and then you run that through the still. So I just got some Welch's grape juice.
Okay, so you used the Welch's grape juice to do it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's inventive, though.
Yep, Welch's grape juice and bread yeast.
All right, and then so 11 years from 11 to 3 years ago, with age 30. What?
A lot.
I mean, did you go back to it at all at any point? Or?
So played with it a bunch for a couple years, kind of.
Like you must have been popular in high school.
So I wasn't. I wasn't like running shine. Like and I don't know that I really distilled that much in high school. I started making more beer in high school.
Okay.
I played it. A buddy of mine, I showed him how to build a still in college. We ran a couple little small batches, and when he was moving in the next year into the dorms, it was in a box in the hallway, and campus security saw it and confiscated it. They didn't know whose it was, and obviously nobody owned up to it. It was reported in the security blotter as that they confiscated a meth making rig. So we took there was some humor in that, and that kind of, we were like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't be doing this at school.
Right. Where'd you go to school?
Washington and Jefferson, south of Pittsburgh, by the way.
Yeah, sure. And okay, so now you grew up here in Gettysburg?
I did not.
Okay, where'd you grow up?
So born in Hanover, there for a short time. York until I was 8, and then Northern Lancaster County, Denver, PA. We moved there for my father and his partner to open up a diner.
Of course.
Yeah.
Greek diner, yeah.
50s style diner. My dad went to Baltimore Culinary Institute back in the day. He's a certified baking and pastry chef.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I grew up in New Jersey, and everybody there that owns a diner is Greek.
Yeah, I mean, go figure. Greek owning a diner.
Yeah. Well, but whatever. They all had money.
Yeah, the diner did well, but my father also, growing up, made sure I worked there, and I did the most miserable of tasks at the most inopportune of time to make sure that I wanted nothing to do with the restaurant as I grew up.
Which is what?
Which is what?
What did you do that's most...
dishwashing, or if something, like there was a dumbwaiter, and when it would break, you'd have to climb in the pit, or when the sump pump went out in the pit.
So you purposely volunteered for these, or he made you do that?
No, typically. Half and half. Okay. So like I like work with my hands, I like fixing things, but also it would be like, you got to fix this tonight, and my response would be, but we have a school dance. And he'd be like, nope, tonight. Waking me up early to go. When I was younger, I would go in with him, and it was fun going to work with Dad. And then I got older, it was, sorry, somebody called off, and I know you had plans, but your plans now are go wash dishes or brush tables or whatever.
It's for the family.
It is. Yeah. So I loved it, but and also really the part that I think, I guess probably many sons have this if they work for their fathers or with their fathers. The standards that anybody else performed their job to were not the same standards I was held to.
Right.
So, as a child growing up and figuring out the world, like that could present some challenges along the way. But to his credit, I think that's a big chunk of where my work ethic comes from today.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Right. No, it was probably a good thing. Because you think about it, then he to the non-relatives who worked for him, if he treated you better than them, that would look bad. So he's got to treat you worse. But in the end, you get a good work ethic.
Correct. Yeah. No, there was no son of the owner favors for sure.
Right.
But all in all, I think it was a good thing.
I worked for my dad, and the guys called me Uday.
Okay.
Because that was the time when we took down Saddam Hussein. Okay. And so you had all the stories about Uday and Qusay, his little brat sons. So that's what they called me, Uday.
Yeah, I think the bigger reason is he didn't want me to get into a restaurant because he knew what it's like. He knew it's like being self-employed, where all of the struggles are your own, and even when you go home, you're still working. And
exactly.
You're first there, last to leave. And he wanted better for me.
Yeah. And so you opened a restaurant.
Well, yeah, correct. So we ended up there, but that wasn't the plan. Went to college, worked a summer job for a general contractor out of Reading, Pennsylvania, and I loved it. I was low man on the totem pole. I was general labor, so I got all the crap work. But I discovered a position called project manager when I was there, and I fell in love because I thought it was the perfect marriage of people skills and mechanical skills. You had to understand how everything was going together, and then you had to get all these different subcontractors to work together to accomplish it. And then the icing on the cake for me was I thought it was a novelty because they worked 40 or 45 hours a week, and some definitely put some more hours in, but most of them were, I don't think anybody really usually regularly worked over 50 hours a week. And that to me seemed easy growing up watching a father working 80 to 100 hours a week.
Right.
And they got to have weekends. And generally when they clocked out at the end of the day, they got to go home. Nobody was calling them saying, hey, this broke or this person didn't show up. It was a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
So I remember the first time I went over, it was back in April, the first time I went to the distillery, and I brought a group of guys. We had done a walking tour on the battlefield, and you gave us a tour of the facilities. And you told us your story, your life story about the accident. You alluded to it before. Yep. Let's get to it now, because I remember afterwards I said, I want you to come on the podcast because I like that story. I'm a guy who, every once in a while, I start feeling down and low and down on myself and everything. And then I hear a story like that and I go, what the hell are you bitching about? Like, get off your ass and do it. So what is this story? What happened with this accident and how did it get you to where you are now?
So post-college, come full circle, ended up working.
Just real quick, talk right into that mic. But you can move it so that it's easier. You don't have to sit sideways.
I just might move my chair a little bit.
There you go. Move your chair. There you go. Sorry, I want people to hear this.
No, all good. So, So I had graduated college, bounced around for a little bit, trying to find a PM job. And eventually I was brought in as assistant project manager at the same general contractor. And I was excited, but assistant project manager meant you file all their papers. So it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but it was an opportunity. And I was told, give it a couple years. You got some stuff to learn. And I ended up turning a couple years into a couple months. I was made a junior project manager and was over the moon. Got my first project. Now I wasn't flying solo. It was closely guided, but 2 weeks after that promotion, I got into a car accident on the way to work. And that car accident effectively ended up putting me in bed for 2 years. In the middle of that roughly 2-year span, I was told that my best option would be going disability because you're just probably not going to be able to work again.
Now, what injuries did you sustain?
So tore some stuff in my shoulder, but that wasn't the cause of this. What happened and what took so long to find somebody that could know what was going on and put me on the path I needed to be on to get better, not whole, but better. It's called scapular dyskinesis, most often caused by trauma. And what it is that there's a nerve that comes out and fires like the 20 something different muscles that are attached to your scapula, your shoulder blade, and move it. Well, that nerve, due to the trauma, the signals just stop coming from my brain to move it. Okay. So that in and of itself doesn't sound terrible until you realize the effect it has on your body as a whole. So what happens is there is an accessory nerve that comes out from the very base of your skull and outside of your spine. Okay. That comes up, and its main job is to fire your upper trapezius. So what happened is that accessory nerve and that upper trapezius tried to stabilize my entire shoulder girdle. So what this means was the things in my back around my scapula that were trying to support that whole thing turned off. And instead, my upper trap was trying to do the job of those 20-something other muscles. So after the adrenaline wore off from the accident, I locked up with my right ear touching my right shoulder and couldn't move my neck.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
So the body, being the wonderful, adaptable machine that it is, started to say, well, if you're pulling real hard to the right, what I can do is I can tighten you on the left side, and that'll get your head upright, which probably outwardly looked okay. But what it did was my neck was basically all the muscles were contracting as hard as they could. So that would crawl up into my head and kind of wrap around my ear and up into my eye. So I had this migraine that wouldn't go away. The mere act. So I was in pain all the time. I had this migraine that wouldn't go away. And then that was just laying down. When I tried to stand up and actually support my own head, it got even worse. And then that traveled down my back, like down the entirety of my spine. So it, instead of being a straight spine, it S-ed itself. So you got, I know the podcast listeners can't see this, so I'll try to, you got your right ear being pulled to your shoulder. So your body goes, let me contract that. Also, I shrank because we compressed my spine a little bit. So the left is trying to pull over, your shoulders are rock hard, your trap's rock hard. And that's pulling into your thoracic spine, so the middle of your back. So that's doing weird things. That eventually gets into your low back. So now low back's trying to pull one way to compensate. It makes this huge body mechanics problem. So eventually in the middle of that, being stuck in bed, I decided I had a little bit left in me. I tell people I used to have a roaring fire in me prior to the car accident, and I was left with embers. And I stoked one of those embers and made one final push. Talked my way into seeing a doctor that wasn't currently taking patients at Hopkins. Okay.
You talked yourself into that. How'd you talk the doctor into?
Just not really taking no for an answer. And I think also on top, I decided I really needed to be an advocate for myself. Right. Yes. Because everybody else was just going to pass me off to them, and be left with no answers for me. So I did some research, and I decided that Johns Hopkins, premier research hospital, East Coast, like if there's a doctor that's going to know something, it's going to be there. My pain there was physical abnormalities between my shoulder proper and my neck, like lumps, and I could feel it pulling. And literally one time I got a shot into one of the big lumps, and it momentarily, my muscle knots, and it momentarily released, and it was this wave of of normal. I was like, I think that's where the problem is. So I didn't fully understand, but I decided a shoulder doctor is what I needed to find. So I decided that a shoulder doctor that specialized in athletes would be a good way to go.
Sure, yeah, it makes sense.
Specifically, one of the team surgeons for the Baltimore Orioles.
Of course, that's what we all would do.
So,
go after the Orioles doctor.
Yeah, so I just found his number, and I got his nurse, I guess is who I was talking to, and she was relaying back and forth saying, I'm sure there's somebody in your area. And I think I said, as I was describing what was going on, I think I just said something that piqued his interest. So he brought me in, did a physical exam, looked at my past imaging, ordered some new imaging. He goes, I think I know what's going on, but get this imaging test and I'll call you. I was like, okay, he's going to call me. This could be where he just says sorry, because it's easier to say sorry over the phone than it is in person. Instead, what he said was, I think I know what's going on, can't diagnose or treat it, but I can refer you to somebody that I think can help you. And he listed 2 doctors, and basically one was in Colorado, one was in Kentucky. And I asked him 3 times in a row who the better doctor was, and he refused to answer that question because he didn't want to rank his peers. And then I paused for a minute, and I asked him who he spoke to more often. And he chuckled a little bit and said, Dr. Kibler down in Kentucky, and got scheduled in to see him. So it took months to see the doctor. Even once I was on he was 4-month backlog.
Right.
It took another couple months till I got to see the doctor in Kentucky. But my father drove me down to see the doc in Kentucky when the appointment finally came up. And he scheduled me so he had time with me. I think my first visit with him was like an hour and a half. And he asked me a lot of questions, asked me what happened, asked me where the pain was, what happened when I did X, Y, Z, whatever. And then he was one of the first doctors that actually had me take off my shirt, and he kind of felt what I was talking about, but then also had me do these functional tests. He had like 9 functional tests where he compared the left to the right. He ended it saying, I think I know what's going on. I think we can get you fixed. It's funny. It took me a long time to be able to tell the story and just not start to well up. Just flat out cry. I could feel myself welling up a little bit. So I cried because I was at the end of my rope.
Sure.
And he threw me something. And he set me up with his physical therapist in the office, showed me a bunch of exercise, said, go do these, and see you again in a couple months. And he kept updating that protocol. It's his own protocol for this condition. And I still see him every couple months, and he updates things that I should be doing, shouldn't be doing. And I thank him every time I see him for getting me my life back.
Right.
And he says, don't thank me. You're the one doing all the hard work. So
true.
It turns out, didn't know this at the time, but because this car accident was not my fault, so there was a whole legal component to all of this as well. That after we got his CV, that he is one of, if not the top shoulder doctors in the country. And this is kind of this is what he digs in. This is what he wants his lasting mark to be. And he has a CV, a resume that's almost 100 pages long.
Wow. What's his name?
Dr. Ben Kibler.
Kibler in Kentucky? What part of Kentucky?
In Lexington. He's at the Lexington Clinic.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now wait. So when you're going to the doctor at this point, like before he starts treating you and you start getting better, are you still all twisted up like that, or are you?
And so it still tries to twist me to this day, and we're 7 years out, which is why I do a lot of different things. But yeah, I'm in bed at home, curtains drawn, lights dim because migraine, lights, sounds, everything.
Still, you're saying?
Still. Yeah. I occasionally would say, if I can just make a push and go out. So I'd try to go out to dinner, go see, and every time I was just miserable. It was hell.
Migraines are the worst.
Migraines are the worst. Being in pain, not having answers. I don't think I've ever put the word to it, but it was depressing.
Sure.
Constant pain is literally depressing to the nervous system. Pain long-term can cause depression all on its own.
Yeah.
But yeah, the entire rehab and therapy was just trying to retrain the body to move properly again. And it was and it is exhausting and painful and mentally strenuous. So I was active. I was incredibly active before this. I played lacrosse in high school. I played lacrosse in college. My favorite, I was telling you, before we started our formal recording, my favorite things were outside things. I worked on the horse farm growing up. And then
love horses.
Yeah. This one car accident that, visually didn't like punch the front end of my car in pretty good. No, neither of us drove away, but it also didn't look like much. It was, I don't know exactly how fast I was going, but I wasn't going very fast. It was a relatively low speed accident, but just the exact way everything came together.
Really?
Yeah. So being really active, then being told, sorry, like we suggest to go on,
go on disability.
Go on disability. You're not going to work anymore. That was just soul crushing.
Yeah. Yeah. But I love that you said, no, I'm going to get this better. 'Cause you're right. I found this out with my doctor, and I don't have problems like that at all. But I mean, just simple things like I had to advocate for myself. I had to insist. You don't know what you're talking about, Doc. I'm telling you, this is a problem. We need to find out what it is.
So on top of it, just being crushing, just having that news and being given that diagnosis, it was made even worse on those, when I would make those attempts to go out, and people that you've known your whole life would go, you look fine. There can't be anything wrong with you.
Yeah.
So it's all in your head. You'll be fine. Oh, that was brutal.
There's nothing worse than it's all in your head.
You already felt terrible, and then to get kicked that hard by people that you knew and loved. I mean, it was pretty shitty.
And now, you said it was a low speed accident. Did you walk away from it and then these problems started, or was it immediate?
So I was pretty amped up immediately. There was a ton of adrenaline, and waited for the tow truck, got in the tow truck, started to drive home, and my right ear and my right shoulder kept getting closer and closer together as I was driving, as I was being driven home.
Really?
So yeah, I went right to the emergency room once the car got dropped off.
So you're feeling the muscles pulling your head over, and there's nothing you could do to stop it?
No.
Oh, that would scare the hell out of me.
Yeah, it was terrifying.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was terrifying. I wouldn't wish it upon anybody.
Wow. So then you get yourself functioning again.
So that's still, that's a work in progress and always will be. But, lots of exercises. Pretty early on when I was stuck in bed, they kept giving me more and more pain pills. They're like, you just need to move more and you'll start to work again. In the middle, somewhere, I don't remember exactly how long, but I was probably on heavy duty pain meds because they kept upping them because I kept getting used to them.
Right.
I remember a visit where I told the doctor I don't want to take pain pills anymore. And he goes, oh, you're good. I said, no, but I'm on like 4 times the dose that we started off with. And I was like, I've seen this movie and I don't want this movie. Right. I don't want this to play out for me.
And he's like, but I get kickbacks.
Yeah. So in the middle of all of this, I didn't get any support on how to come off it. They just stopped the script. So I went, yeah.
Oh my God.
So I had the hell that I was already in.
Yeah.
I had the agony of, it was withdrawal from pain meds.
How long were you withdrawing for?
The whole, as vivid as everything is, it's all a blur because I really try not to talk about it that much and go that deep on it. I want to say that was probably like a month and a half. So like 6 weeks.
God, that's miserable.
Yeah.
I know people that had to go through that. It's like misery.
Yeah. And
wow.
Yeah.
And I saw the Ray Charles movie.
I did not, but
there's a whole sequence with that.
Yeah, and so the whole thing was just a challenge. So in getting off of that, Dr. Kibler suggested, you're probably at some point after this, between me quitting, me finding him, and me going forward and slowly getting better. The big thing I always asked him about was I really didn't care too much about the function of everything and how I moved. I was like, will the pain go away? And, one of those visits, I had a conversation with him of probably not. Like, if you haven't gotten rid of it by now, it's probably there, because what happens is when you're so used to being in pain, your neural pathway literally rewires itself. So what may have once been a 2-lane winding backcountry road now becomes an 8-lane superhighway. So any little input gets relayed to the brain super quickly. So you move a little bit wrong, you bump something a little bit wrong, and your brain perceives it to be 10 times worse than what it was.
Okay.
So what he suggested was getting into cognitive behavior therapy specific to pain management, which is just changing the way you manage your pain without medicine or pills or drugs.
And how do you do that?
It's not easy. It sounds easy. It's easy to say, but I can give some examples. An example I was given of the effect of cognitive behavior therapy was an example of, they referred to it as he would always go out into the bush. So I'm assuming he was an Australian gentleman who, and it actually lines up for the second part of the story, would always go out into the bush and do his expeditions and whatever. And, when you're walking through the bush, things hit you and jaggers and thorns and whatever. Right. And he ended up on one of those excursions getting bit by something super poisonous, because again, that's why I said lines up Australia, and has like this massive, it almost loses his leg, and then eventually recovers, gets treatment, and he realizes when he goes back into the bush, all those things that he didn't feel before or pay any attention to were excruciatingly painful. So getting stuck with a jagger, getting stuck with anything, because the brain remembered that one time that tiny little prick you felt ended up being something that almost killed you. So the brain rewired itself to make those little things be excruciatingly painful. So
interesting.
Yeah, that is the brain crazy. Like we don't know enough about the brain.
Yeah, wow.
But the way cognitive behavior therapy has a bunch of different things. I'm not claiming to be an expert, but something I did before those words were even said to me that I didn't realize I was doing was distraction. So, toddler stubs their toe, falls down, starts crying. You pick them up and just start going, look at the sky, look at the dog.
Shake your keys.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's distraction.
Works on me to this day.
And it's same. And what I didn't realize I was doing was the distillery was my first distraction.
Okay.
Gave me something to just focus on. It was one challenge, one problem after the next. So I was inadvertently, by starting this up and all the hoops I had to jump through and all the challenges I faced, I was distracting myself. Now, still in pain, but a little bit less because you don't think about it quite as much. Right. Another one, this gets a little bit deeper, and again, not an expert on this. I remember that trip. I listened to nothing but podcasts and recordings about cognitive behavior therapy the whole way home. One was, literally just talk to yourself and, envision a dial in your head that if your pain level's a 6, envision it being on a 6 and just turn it down to a 5 and see if you can turn it down.
So, okay, wait, because I've been told similar things, more for anxiety and stuff like that, right? I don't understand how to get into that mindset.
I can't tell you how to get there.
Okay.
I think I can tell you maybe how to get there. Meditating.
That's what I don't get.
Get inside your head.
I can't. I'm afraid. That's what I'm trying to get out of.
So you got to make it real quiet in there, which is really hard to do.
Oh my God.
But
it's impossible.
Turning the dial down didn't work for me. But then I found the further explanation of that was make another dial in your head, and let's just call this one to be the willingness or the openness to just feeling less pain. Not necessarily touching the pain, but are you willing or wanting to feel more pain? And let's turn that dial up. It sounds super kooky, and I'm not what I would describe as real crunchy, but as you get further into it, people with much more knowledge in this describe it as, your brain has a full pharmacy in it.
Yeah.
And if you just learn how to tap into a fraction of that pharmacy, you can start to change your state of mind and how you perceive things, and you can literally rewire yourself to become a different person.
See, this fascinates me.
Yeah, same.
Because I don't like taking pills.
I hate it.
But I do have anxiety and depression, and it's debilitating sometimes.
Yep.
And I know when I was at the worst point, I said, okay, it's gonna. There's only one way for it to get worse than where I am right now, and I have a lot more living to do. Yep. So that's not going to happen. So how do we go back the other way? And it was like a decision in my mind to get better. But I did need, some help. Obviously, I can't do it all alone.
Correct.
But one of the things somebody was saying was like, you got to try to meditate. You got to, and I'm like, what the frig does that mean?
So my first experience with learning to meditate was, so that horse farm I worked on, we also used to show horses. Mm-hmm. And I would get so wound up and so just excited for what was to come. And horses are awesome, but they're also hypersensitive to their environments. Yeah. So I would get wound up, the horse would get wound up. It's no different than if you're on guard, your dog's going to get on guard. Or if you're, so the way and I've never really taken it much further than this, but I use this in lacrosse before games to just kind of settle the butterflies. And, I'm not going to tell you that I reached nirvana, but, you got to sit there and just tune everything out, get to the point where you don't hear anything. Just focus on your body, close your eyes, and focus on your breathing. And the breathing is, you breathe in very purposefully, and you hold it, and then you breathe out very purposefully. You slow your breath down, and you try to take the biggest breath you can. But the way it was explained to me the first time, and I still use this from time to time when I need to tweak. So, sidebar within how to do this. They say if you take a chunk of your life, even if it's just a couple weeks or a couple months, and you meditate and you're able to actually calm yourself and focus, that the positive effects of that meditating you did, even if it was years ago or weeks ago or whatever, actually carries through your entire life.
Really?
Yes. But so in addition to that breathing, I was told, breathe in white smoke. And your first and envision it going into your lungs. And the longer you do this, the further and further it gets into your body, going further and further out to your extremities. So it's not one breath and poof, it's at your fingertips. Your first breath maybe just fills your chest cavity. Your second breath takes a little bit further and it goes and goes. But on top of that, so white smoke coming in, but then when you breathe out, you want to envision, as you hold that breath, you want to envision that smoke kind of getting into all the nooks and crannies, permeating you. And it pulls out all the bad stuff, and bad stuff is in this case going to be dirty. So you that white smoke turns black, and then the further along you get, and the more focused you get, and the more Zen-like you become along the way, comes back to gray, lighter gray, and you're done when you can breathe in pure white and breathe out pure white.
Yeah, I think you have to have a certain level of like mental strength and focus to get there, right? Though, I mean, like to even start that, I could never. I tried starting, I could never do it.
So, you're gonna glare at me. With that attitude, you're not going to.
It's one of those things.
So it's totally it's mind over matter. Like and you practice.
Yeah.
I've taught a couple other people along the way to do it, and it's funny. Most people laugh and they're like, "How are you telling me to meditate? Like, I've seen your videos, I've seen you." I'm like, "I'm telling you, it's just try it." And I've actually, one of my employees, it was funny. Like, I couldn't get him to quite operate at the level I needed him to.
Yeah.
When I sat down to do my one-on-ones, I was like, "So what?" I just get so nervous. I was like, "All right, I'm going to throw this out there. You can laugh at me." I gave it to him. He tried it. And all of a sudden, he's doing it for a couple of weeks, and he's performing even better at work.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have to take some pointers from you later before you leave.
No,
I'll give it an honest effort. And believe me, I have before. But the only reason I have that attitude is because it hasn't worked for me. Like, I was open to it at one point.
So, yeah, you got to be open to it. And you also don't have big expectations of what's going to happen. Really, all you're trying to do in that moment is just shut everything else out, which gets super into why depression is so much more a thing in society now, because we're so connected and we see everybody else's best moments or whatever. So you're connecting from all your other senses, and you're disconnecting from all your other senses and inputs, and you're just spending a little bit of time with yourself.
Yeah, which we don't do anymore.
No.
We're constantly, because when I come home and I'm done with everything and I go lay down to relax, I'm on my phone.
Yep.
Or I'm watching something on Netflix. I can't.
So it's so the hardest part to do when you're wired to go is to stop and do nothing.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do, and I didn't get to do it at all this year, and I'm really upset about it, is I go camping. Now, I don't backpack in. I throw a bunch of stuff in my truck, and I go deep into the woods enough where my phone doesn't work, and Even if it does work, I turn it off so I don't see it, and just hang out. Like maybe meditation hasn't worked for you because you've done it here, you've done it at home. Maybe you need
to go out in the woods or something.
Maybe you need to go out in the woods. Like maybe you need to go somewhere that just. I'm sure you got a spot or two in the park that you sit there and you just you get a little spark, you get a little something that you're just overcome with. Mm-hmm. You use that as your catalyst to be able to dive a little bit deeper.
I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it next time. I'm going to go and I'm going to.
That makes me incredibly happy that you're trying
because I want it to work. I don't want to take pills. Yeah. But the pills do something, but they're not. They're masking things. I understand. Like the thing is, like there's something wrong inside, and it's yelling out, and so the pills are just pushing it down. Yep. So this meditation and all this stuff, like that's what's going to fix it. I understand that,
and it goes back to your brain has a full pharmacy inside of it. It's why it took time for my adrenaline to wear off before the physical ailments presented themselves. It's why you hear stories about mothers lifting cars off of children. Like there's no way they could do that any other point in time.
Right.
It's mind over matter. It's how, you see elite athletes performing with a broken leg casted up. It's those a lot of those moments of extraordinary performances are coming because your brain gave you that little bit of extra something.
Right. It's fascinating. I could talk about this all day long, but we have many things to get to. Well, that'll be the next time you come on. We'll continue more.
So within that, let's get into the other stuff. My hope is, so I'm super excited that you want me to teach you this once we're off of this, and
sure.
and I hope it helps. And
so do I.
It's not a fix all for everything, but it may give you the little bit of extra self resolve. It may give you that. It's the thoughts in your head do a lot to shape your reality around you. So, if everything around you is bad and woe is me all the time,
right.
If you just, I'm not perfect at this. There's times where I'm
everything is a work in progress.
Everything is a work in progress. But as long as you're willing to acknowledge that and do some work on it, that I posted something, it must have been months ago. I caught myself, the bridge out here. The light, and I was in a rush, and I did not make it. I was way far back in traffic. It went through several cycles. I got up, and for a second, I was like, traffic. I need to get back to work. We're short, and then I was like, holy shit! Look at that sunset.
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, okay,
exactly.
Thank you, universe, for my little sign. Like, dial it back. We're fine. It's all going to be fine.
It also helps too if you get rid of Facebook. I find the personal account, like keep the business account, keep the personal account just to have the business account, but don't engage.
So that's a totally different thing. That's I think I think social media does a lot to expose us to who we really are and lets us do what we really want to do when we want to do it.
Which is why it's bad.
Yeah, but it's not bad. It's only amplifying what's already there.
Oh, true. But the amplification of it is bad because the perception is that it's worse than it ever was, but it's not. It's just more in your face than it ever was.
Correct. We're so connected that one random bad thing happens over there and it's national news. Everybody knows about it now. Oh, you got to be scared of this. You got to be scared of that.
But you used to be able to delude yourself into thinking that the world and people in it are generally good. Yes. Right before social media, because you didn't see all this stuff 24 hours a day. Now you do, and now everybody goes, the world has gone to hell, but it's always been this way.
I'm in hospitality. The world is generally good. I get the best of the best and the worst of the worst and everything in between.
Yeah.
And 99.9% of the people that walk through my door are good people, or they want to be good people.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying is they are, but the perception is that they're not.
Yes,
because everywhere you look on social media, everybody's miserable. Everybody's fighting with each other. People who I used to think were like, librarian types, are like the nastiest people on social media.
Yeah. Correct. And that's when you snooze them, or it's when you put got married in May. We went on a belated honeymoon. We just got back a couple weeks ago. I've left my phone on silent since we've been back. I've missed so many phone calls and have been late to answer so many emails, which anybody who's interacted with me already knows that I'm terrible at answering emails.
Yeah.
I feel great about it.
Exactly.
I feel fucking great about it.
2 years ago, my friend came to me, and we were both talking about just how miserable everything was. And he's like, he goes, you know what I did last week, a week ago? I go, what? And he's like, I deleted the Facebook app off my phone.
Yep.
And I go, really? He goes, yeah. He goes, first couple of days it was tough. I was always going to my phone to look and see what's going on. Because but once I fought that and got past it, I'm dreaming again when I sleep.
Colors were brighter.
Yeah.
Sounds were more vivid.
And I was like, really? And he goes, yeah. He's like, try it. And I did, and I haven't looked back 2 years ago.
So it's super interesting. Something I read relatively recently, that multitasking, the watching TV and on the commercials also scrolling.
Yeah.
It never allows your brain to fully commit to anything, which makes sense. But also, therefore, you never get that depth of thought. And you're not actually exercising your brain to its fullest degree. And I'm guilty of it as well. I'm not sitting here being like, oh, I'm the next. I'm not. But
the guru of Gettysburg.
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah,
No, you're right. You're right. Like, and I find myself. In fact, earlier today, I had several things that I wanted to accomplish when I came in here this morning.
Yep.
And I'm in the middle of number one. And I look on my, I said, I got to go to my phone because I had to upload something that was on my phone to my Google Drive so I could download it here on the computer to make a t-shirt, right?
Yep.
And so I go to the phone to do it. And I see I have a message on Instagram or whatever it was. I don't even remember what it was. It wasn't even that important. And I look at that and then I put it down after Instagram. I go back to the computer and I'm like, oh, wait a second. I went over here for something else. What did I go over here for?
Yep.
And then I remembered what it was. And it's just, you're right. There's so many things to distract us that we don't get in deeply into something.
So I tend to, I'll just be very specific here. 4-hour work week, Tim Ferriss. The single most important thing, the only thing that I can tell you by name is batching. You set a time to answer emails, whether it's once a day, twice a day, and you don't look at it. And if you don't have the willpower to not look at it, set it that it only refreshes at a certain time of that day. And then this way you stay focused on that one task you're trying to do and you don't go to anything else. You don't let anything distract you. Now, I start that and then I devolve. And then something happens. I'm like, okay, get back to it. And so it's constant work in progress, constant ebb and flow. But when I got back, from the honeymoon, I had so much work to do that I wrote a list. I picked a couple things that were the most pressing to do. I got those done. And then if there was time to do some more, I did some more. And if there wasn't time to do any more, I felt okay because I got those things done. There's literally an app you can download. It's called Pick 3. And you write 3 things down that you need to get done.
Oh, I like that.
And it gives you that tactile feedback, that dopamine hit when you can cross something off the list. We're all capable of a lot more than what we're doing.
Absolutely. And in doing this podcast with the writing that I do for the free episodes, I'll find myself trying to do that while I'm doing something else. Like if it's a slow day at the bike tours, I'll pull it up and I'll start going through it. And I got 6 books around me and I'm looking things up and I'm trying to put it in. But I'm trying to put it. I'm trying to write it in a not poetic, but like a good. I'm just trying to write it well.
Yep.
And that there's a certain part of my brain that I have to tap into for that. And I know it because I can feel it. There's a feeling I get. It's like a tingle. And I know that I'm in that zone. But very rarely do I ever get in that zone anymore because there's the frickin' phone. And then if I'm doing it at the other job, then it's, somebody comes up to me and asks me where the visitor center is. And we're at the visitor center and it drives me nuts.
Meditation, as I know it, is all about getting in the zone.
Yeah.
It prepares you to do whatever you're about to do, whatever you're about to do or need to do or want to do.
Well, that was always my frustration with it, was because I'm a musician, I guess, at first. That's what I used to do all the time. And I would get in the zone. I remember when I was a kid and I would be practicing piano, I'd be getting into some kind of groove and finally I'd hear my mother or my sister yell my name, but it was the fourth time that they'd done it, but I only heard it that first time, or that was the first time in my mind because I was in a zone, and man, it felt great.
Yep.
And I felt calm and at ease, and I could see things clearly and prioritize and everything like that. I don't get in that zone anymore. Even when I try to play, I don't get in the zone, and it pisses me off
because there are more than enough things to distract you.
Yeah, there are.
So you have to purposefully eliminate distractions.
Well, then I'd have to live in a cave.
I tell my wife at least once a week that we should sell the house, get a tent, and live in the woods.
Yeah. Oh, these tiny living people.
She's not about it.
Oh, she's not?
No.
Oh, I would love to do that. Just have a little tiny house out in the woods, you know. But I'd have to have a compound of tiny houses. Like there's the living room, then there's the kitchen,
the bathhouse, the kitchen.
Like each room is just going to be a separate house. So it basically is
makes cleaning easier, I think.
It depends because like what is connecting the houses? Do you have a walkway or are you going on open ground? Because if it's open ground, then you're going to be sweeping all the time.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? And even if it's a walkway, you're out in the woods, leaves blow.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to have its own problems. It seems simple. It seems nice, but it has its own problems.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I was just thinking, I don't know why, and I kind of know why. We got ourselves a little Roomba.
Oh yeah,
and it has been just eliminating 90% of a task that is not spiritual for me, that is not rewarding for me, that is just something that needs to get done. We have a dog, Mash, so there's hair. So really, in order to keep the floor hair free and keep my wife happy, we'd have to vacuum every day. And we were vacuuming every day for a while. Yeah. And that's not the life that I'm about.
But think, have you seen the videos of like
yes
dog poop?
Yes. Of course I have.
Yeah. So the Roomba is great as long as you're there and you know the dog hasn't pooped on the floor.
Fortunately, Mash is a good boy. And Mash is also crated when we're not home. So we're good on that. Yeah.
I love that the dog's name is Mash, which brings us to the distillery.
Yes, it does.
There we go. Okay, so you opened 3 years ago.
Yeah.
2016.
Correct.
July 1st, you said.
Yes.
And how was it? Was it a successful open, or has it taken a while for you to get to where you are now? Because I would say you're pretty successful.
Wasn't what I wanted to be when we opened. On the food end, wasn't where I wanted it to be. Also, we launched with 2 products. We had a white rum and a vodka. My mantra that I preach and do my best to practice every day is just do your best today and try to do better tomorrow. Try to ingrain that idea into my team and my staff as well, which is why we're constantly changing things up. Even if there's something that we're doing well, if I think we can do it better, but it involves gutting the whole process, and we gut the process and we start over and we deal with those growing pains and we figure it out. I said earlier, none of us, I think, are the best versions of ourselves possible, and we have to actively try to get to that. And I try to do that personally, and I'm definitely trying to do that in my business as well. Don't get me wrong. We stumble and we trip and fall sometimes, but it's, when I tell people we've been open for just over 3 years and I haven't screwed it up too bad yet, they laugh, but I don't think they laugh quite as knowingly as I do when I say it, because I make mistakes all the time, but I'm making mistakes all the time because I'm trying new things and trying to become better.
But that's kind of an artistic attitude to have.
Sure
right?
is. I openly tell people that distilling specifically is its roots are 100% in science, but my final execution is in art. I try new things. If I think there's something else that could work, I try it. I can tell you a lot of different ways on how not to make a good bourbon, but I can also tell you a couple good ways to make it, which I stumbled across along the way.
But that's true for most people that do anything. Yeah. I could tell you 100 ways of how not to do it, but 1 or 2 of how to do it.
The hard part, the personal discipline, is to not let those mistakes get to you.
Right.
And they get to me sometimes. But then, you look back and say, well, I found a lot of ways not to do this, but I found one that works really well. I didn't interact with that person as well as I wanted to. But you know what? There was 5 other people today that I interacted with in a perfect way, the way I would want to be interacted with. So it's just.
What do you do? You have a batch and you taste it and you're like, this is terrible. You toss it?
Dilute and destroy.
Really?
Yes. That rum, my white rum, took me 3 months to get it right. And fermentation doesn't scale very well. So
what do you mean it doesn't scale very well?
So if you make a 5-gallon batch a certain way,
yeah,
it's not the same way that you make a 600-gallon batch.
Oh, gotcha.
Because your ratios tweak, which is also true when making batch cocktails or whatever. So for 3 months, and molasses is not cheap, and that's what I make the rum from. We were making batches, and none of them were bad, but it wasn't the rum that I wanted Dixon Distillery to be known for. So dilute and destroy.
Really?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
It is, but it's also it's.
Why don't you give me some?
It's now amazing because it's not Dixon Distillery rum.
Yeah,
it's
but
not the product
I'll keep
I wanted.
It secret. I'll just drink it at home, and I'll be like,
Don't get me wrong, as I had some batches that were closer to what I wanted. Like, throw them in some barrels; they'll become something eventually. But no, I didn't want somebody to have something.
I understand that. Yeah, I'm teasing you.
That's not it.
So you said you throw it in some barrels and it eventually becomes something. Would a rum be thrown in a barrel and eventually become a bourbon?
No.
It
would become an aged rum.
An aged rum, okay.
Correct. Which a lot of people call dark rum, but a lot of dark rum is sometime aged rum. Sometimes I'm
either way
faltering. It's a little later in the day, but oftentimes dark rum is. Well, they put caramel or coloring in. It's not actually aged.
It's not, okay.
Yeah, barrels work magic on spirits. Barrels are the experts disagree on the exact percentage, but at least half of that flavor and that aged product is coming from the barrel itself.
From the wood.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, so you also serve food there.
Sure do.
Which is delicious. Are you a cook at all, or do you have somebody do your menu for? Like, how do you?
So I have a chef. His name's Cameron. He's phenomenal. He's around my age, and he came in I hired him as my sous chef. He was originally my number 2. Brought him in a couple months after we opened, and it was funny. My head chef at the time had moved on, and I had a conversation with him, and I said, Cameron, we need a leader, we need a chef, and would you like that to be you? And he was like, I've been thinking about it, and I think I need to think about it a little bit more, and I'll have you an answer tomorrow. And so I went home and thought about it, because he was like, I'm super uncertain. I don't know if I'm ready yet. And he thought about it, went home. I thought about it, went home, came in, talked the next day, and we sat down and talked. And he goes, Yianni, I think it'd be best if we found somebody in here with a little more experience. I don't think I'm ready for it yet.
Nice.
Thought on it, slept on it. And I said, I also thought on it and slept on it. Congratulations, you're the executive chef. Go get back to work.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, if I can make a tie into Gettysburg, it's kind of like how Meade was told, this isn't an offer. You are in command of the Army of the Potomac.
Yep.
And sometimes that happens, but it works out for the better.
Could not be happier with how it's worked out.
And how is he? Is he happy with it now?
I believe that he is. I think he's really happy because he gets to cook. He also gets involved in the distilling end when it's time for me to decide if a barrel's ready. This is a meritocracy capped with a dictatorship, but I have final say. But I value his opinion. He's got a great palate. Cameron, Jen, my assistant distiller, and myself are the 3 that we normally go with. And if we're close on something and we agree with it, we know we have 3 very specific palates. We'll bring some other staff in. We'll bring my pops in or whatever. Mm-hmm. But he gets to do a little bit of everything. Most of the menu, the menu is pretty much Cameron. Occasionally, I'll give him some real vague idea or show him some random picture from Instagram and be like, make me a version of this. And he'll go, okay, I'll be back in a little bit. And then he brings back something amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the food there is so good. And you know what it is I'll go in there and I'll be like, I don't even know what that is, but I'll try it.
Yep.
I don't know how to pronounce that word.
So what we're doing, what I'm working on, Dixon Distillery is about to get their first television.
Okay. A television in the
distillery.
Got it.
And it will never play TV.
Good.
What it's going to play
Thank you.
is a lineup of pictures of cocktails, pictures of the dishes. You know, so you got to throw some merch in there so we can try to sell some more merchandise along the way.
Yeah.
But just so, you know, we do a lot of non-traditional stuff. And sometimes for a lot of people, I think words on a paper aren't enough, but I think a picture can really show you what you're about to get into.
I think so too.
I think the best part about Cameron, and I didn't really find this out till later, he was really frustrated with cooking. He was getting ready to leave hospitality and being a chef. And he credits our establishment and how we put it together with reigniting his love of food.
Nice.
And so my goal is to, you know, run a successful business, grow it, and see how big I can make my baby. But it's also to try to touch as many lives as I can along the way.
I was just going to say, like, that's like your whole journey to here is affecting what here is for everybody else.
Yeah. So I don't think I've done anything yet, and I tell myself this, and it helps to keep me hungry. But the one thing I do, pat myself on the back, or, you know, hang my hat on temporarily and never let it last, is I went from being told to go on disability. I undisabled myself. Yeah. There's still some limitations, but whatever. And now I provide an honest living for almost 30 people.
Yeah. See, that's great. And imagine if you had listened to the doctor who said, get on disability. Like it's that like butterfly effect thing, right? Or something.
100%, yes.
Like everything, but everything would be different.
I think life must, and this is part of how I balance it out in my head to kind of accept the things I've gone through and not be super bitter and angry about them. I think God, life, nature, whichever of those things you subscribe to, I think was probably giving me some gentle pushes and some gentle signs to go this direction. And me being true to form was stubborn and wasn't listening. So I think I got a big kick right in the ass to say, you will do this or you will do nothing.
Yeah.
And thankfully I was able to, I had enough left in me that I was able to rise to the occasion. I credit everything. It's funny. I've had people get angry at me when I say this. I credit everything that I went through and that I was able to come through to the other side just on my number one trait. Like the thing I was told growing up by almost every school teacher was going to be my downfall: stubbornness. And I've had some people be like, no, it's not stubbornness, like you're downplaying, it's perseverance. I'm like, you can put lipstick on a pig if you want, but it's still a pig. It's stubbornness. I occasionally get some compliments, and I enjoy getting them. So if anybody wants to send some my way, please do. Thank you. But I will openly tell people that I believe this and I don't, but I was just a dumb schmuck that couldn't find a good 9 to 5.
Well, I think there's a lot of business owners, or they could find a 9 to 5, but they'd rather be dead than be in a 9 to 5.
Well, and I never had that taste for myself, and it's funny. Occasionally, I'm like, what would have life been like? I could have had a cabin in the woods, would have had a solid 9 to 5, would have been making money, and that's the tease. Occasionally, I love what I'm doing just about every minute of every day, but every now and then there's a minute where I falter. I'm like, wow, what could it have been like? And I'm like, nope. Because not every day, especially the past couple of weeks, I've been that busy, but I get to go home and see my dog for an hour. I lay down, let my back relax. I play with the dog a little bit. There's occasional, I remember, I've only done this about twice, but 2 days that I can recall where everything just kept going right. Like it went the right way. It was both days. One was like at 3. One was at like 3 in the afternoon. The other one may have been at like 1, but I had started way early. It's like, guys, I'm out. They're like, what? I'm like, everything has gone perfect. If I stay, I will ruin it. I'm leaving. Let me just relish this and have it.
Yeah.
And I'll come back tomorrow, and the mistakes and the headaches can be there tomorrow. But right now, I'm saying, screw it. I'm going home. Mm-hmm. It's a million and one things.
Well, we were talking about the booze before. One of our Instagram followers from the UK actually wanted to know what flavored gins you have and what sets them apart from others.
Gin. Gin. I had a really bad experience with gin in high school. So
Me
I
too.
was, I was, and it was a London Dry, and I, for a very long time, described gin as a whole, which was not doing gin, the world of gin and the selection of gin, any service, and I acknowledge that, but I would describe it as a Christmas tree repeatedly punching you in the mouth over and over and over again.
It's amazing. Not so colorfully, but it always tasted like a pine tree to me. I mean, that's juniper. Is that what that is?
Juniper. Your gin is always needs to be predominantly juniper, but what you can do in the little fold in there, my gin, we made a bunch of different batches of gin and we're tweaking with it. I first tried to make it on one of my normal stills, so I threw the botanicals in the pot, and they just came through burned because they were like the flavors were all burnt and just not good. So I ended up purchasing a rig specifically for infusing botanicals into spirits, which is a broad way of saying making gin. It's a vapor distilled gin. There's this basket that hangs in the pot and in the column, and the alcohol vapor passes through it, pulls the flavor, the essential oils into the spirit, and brings it into the final product. Pretty basic traditional gin bill. Tweaked a couple things along the way. The biggest one your palate can pick up is I went big on the citrus, bigger than normal, specifically with the lemon. And then also took a ton of pepper in there. So big on lemon and pepper. Obviously, you have the juniper spice and a bunch of other supporting cast members. But lemon and pepper would be kind of my house standard gin. Now, something I just put on the shelf but haven't even posted about yet. One of my gins, I wanted to go more New World with my gin. That'll be a term that if you're a gin drinker, you're probably familiar with. Gin in the UK is huge right now. Wanted to go more New World, which to me is more floral and or more citrusy. Played around with some floral stuff and hated the way it came through. That's on me. That's not on floral gins as a whole. But citrus, love the way it came through. So I said, well, if lemon and pepper go well together, maybe we back the pepper down and we throw it just an absolute shit ton of orange in one. And I made one. I was like, oh, this is real good, but I don't want to launch with two gins. So something I wanted to try was I wanted to do a barrel rested gin. So I took all this orange gin, I stuck in a full size barrel, and I forgot about it for a little bit. Tasted it 3 months, and I said, holy shit, get out of the barrel before it changes. It's amazing. So now you have your juniper and your spice, and you get this big orange notes, and then you get the barrel doing all of its caramel and color and just this deliciousness. And the pour, it ends up tasting like a really spicy old fashioned, just right then and there. Okay. So yeah, those are my two gins that are available right now. I had the lemon and peppers. It's a standard. It's staying, and I love it. So I would not qualify. I would not call myself a gin drinker in general. But I went through several bottles this summer because it was hot, and gin and tonics with that were just perfect.
See, that's the thing is I have a friend who has a gin and tonic every once in a while, and I'm like, I can't, because I had the same experience. It was Beefeater, and it was disgusting, and the vomiting, and I can't smell it without thinking of that.
So, yep.
But what my point is that on a really hot day, a gin and tonic looks so refreshing.
I think next time you swing by, we'll make you a mini one. You can try it, and you can say, "Yeah, still have that same opinion," or go, Well, maybe this is
no, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Was that one time we were over there, and he got a gin and tonic, and I almost tried it because I was like, "Man, that looks so good," and I was like, "Well, maybe this is different because it's not Beefeater, It's made by a distillery, and it's like fresh, and it's
everything you find coming out of my kitchen or out of my distillery is always going to be different. I don't try to replicate anything else. It's my own.
Right.
For our user that are out of the UK, we were trying to put together a gin martini, and we can't bring in any other alcohol, so we make our own vermouth, and we're trying to get.
You're not allowed to?
Correct. Right. The type of license I have, so we're trying to dial in this gin martini, and finally I said, you know what? This stuff tastes so good. Let's just make a Churchill Martini, which is just chilled gin. you don't have
so
anything else.
Gin.
So it's just gin.
Okay.
And it was perfect. So I'm like, well, there we go. There's our gin martini. It's a Churchill Martini, no vermouth, no anything else. Just chill the gin and drink it. One of my own self-imposed metrics is if you can sip on something and enjoy it without having to add a thing to it, touch the water, touch the ice, that is an indicator of quality. My spirits are all sippable on their own, and gin nailed it, hit the mark.
Okay. I'll give it a try next time. I mean, it's been quite a while since high school, so.
So, yeah, my spirits all have big flavors, so you're going to have a strong opinion of them one way or the other. If the regular gin, if my clear gin, if my white gin is not for you, I can almost promise you that barrel rested gin is probably gonna tickle your fancy.
Why is that?
You enjoy my bourbon, correct?
Yes,
so
I do.
The notes, the notes from the barrel are half of the flavor of bourbon, where all the color comes from, all that barrel char. That gin spent time in the same type of barrel that the bourbon is finished in, so you're going to get a lot of notes that you find in the bourbon. That's why I equate it to tasting like a spicy old fashioned.
Right.
There's going to be some very familiar notes that'll make that. I think of the two, if I were to put money on making a promise, it would be the barrel rest.
I'll try anything when it comes to booze.
And
so
same.
So you don't have to talk me into it. That was, by the way, G Paint 1971 on Instagram who asked that question. Another question from the Civil War Files is, can they make sweet tea for their southern visitors? Too much of that raspberry. Do you guys make sweet tea? What is he talking about?
I have never once had raspberry iced tea on my menu. The answer is yes, we can make sweet tea for you. We have regular simple syrup, which is just sugar and water. We also typically have some mint simple syrup if you wanted a touch of mint in it. But yeah, I consume a little bit of iced tea myself. A lot of times not sweetened because I'm trying to limit my sugar.
Yeah,
but
me too.
Also, like, I get a little headache coming on. I haven't eaten in a little while. I'm like, you know what I need? I need some iced tea with some sugar in it. And I make a little sweet tea. Yeah, for sure. We can absolutely make you sweet tea. We can make you sweet tea and put vodka in it too if you want.
Oh, now you're talking. How about unsweetened tea with vodka? Would that be good? I guess it would.
Yeah, so my vodka, I haven't done it, but yeah, my vodka has a touch of sweetness to it naturally since its main grain is wheat, and that comes through in the profile.
Right.
I wouldn't see any reason that wouldn't work. There's a few. Tea is like one of my regular hydrating. I drink a ton of water, and when I get tired of water, I drink unsweetened tea.
Same
just
as me.
for a little different something.
Yeah.
I don't really want to ruin one of my main hydration things by adding alcohol to it.
Well, why would that ruin it? Because then that's all you would drink, or
no? Just I don't know. Like it's my hydrator. It's my go-to. I don't want tempted to add a drop of vodka to it during the day. Like I just don't.
Well, it's not for you. It's for the customers.
For the customer, I have no. We would put. We did a peach sweet tea we had on the menu this summer. That we made with our bourbon. So and it was we took our cold. We took our cold brewed iced tea. We took local peaches and added a little bit of sugar to them and pureed them, put them in, and then just added bourbon. So it's nothing like that raspberry tea garbage.
Yeah, like that nest tea.
Yeah, you get that film on your mouth.
Oh, it's so gross.
So, because we make everything from scratch. I don't add any additives to my alcohol. No glycerin, no sugar, no anything like that. We make all of our mixers from scratch. You never get that sticky preservative residual mouthfeel. That
mass-produced bottled crap.
Yeah.
I love the corn whiskey too. Corn, is that moonshine basically?
A lot of people equate it to moonshine. There's a couple of reasons it's not going to be moonshine. The biggest one being is I'm a federally bonded production facility, state licensed production facility. I have all my local business ordinances.
Illegal.
Yeah. So the corn whiskey is the only spirit that can legally bear the name whiskey despite not having been aged in a barrel. Now you can age it in a barrel, and depending on what kind of barrel, it may or may not still be called corn whiskey, whatever. But I make it from grain. A lot of moonshiners will typically do a sugar wash and then like add some flaked corn for the corn flavor. I actually go through the process of saccharification, which is a multi-step process of converting the starch in the grain into a fermentable sugar.
Okay.
That is how a whiskey is made, period. Moonshiners a lot of times will do a sugar wash, which you take some water, take some sugar, throw some flaked corn, crushed corn, whatever it is to get some corn flavor, because they don't have all day to go through the saccharification process because they're doing an illegal process in the middle of the woods and then you get in and get out.
You got to do it quickly.
Correct.
Yeah. So Another one here, Rocky Road Trips. She asks, what is your favorite way to drink bourbon and what is an easy bourbon mixed drink? Asking for a friend.
So there's definitely a video or two that I posted before in the past, and I think I said how to make my favorite bourbon cocktail or what my favorite cocktail was, and I literally just took a bottle of bourbon and I poured it into a nosing glass and I said, glass of bourbon, my favorite drink.
That is the best way.
An easy drink. It's if you want to... bourbon and ginger ale is super easy to do. Your ratios can be anywhere and it'll still taste perfect. I think I would suggest trying to learn how to make an old fashioned if that's something you and or your friend like. Basically, you take your bourbon, you add a little bit of sweetener, and you add a little bit of bitters. Our bourbon at the distillery is just that. We add bourbon, a little bit of sweetener, and a little bit of bitters, and nothing else. I don't like that muddled fruit garbage, splash of soda water. Mine's very booze forward old fashioned. We specifically add a little bit of regular simple syrup, so 1 part water, 1 part sugar. You make it ahead of time. You don't boil it, you just heat it up enough to dissolve the sugar.
Okay.
And then the specific bitters we use for that cocktail, we use Fee Brothers Black Walnut. It makes this super delicious, really easy to make cocktail. We candy our own cherries, which you probably don't want to do. You also don't need to do. I do add a single candied cherry to it, but it's not muddled. It's just this tasty little treat that awaits you once you finish the glass. You could get some Luxardo cherries if you wanted to get fancy. They're kind of pricey, but they're super highbrow mixologists, but they're real tasty too, and they have a long shelf life. So if you want to learn to make one bourbon cocktail, I suggest dialing in an old fashioned. Ratios are whatever you want them to be. I think I'm at about an ounce and a. I think I'm 2 ounces of bourbon to a half ounce of simple syrup, and then 3 dashes of black walnut bitters. Okay. You don't want a ton of ice. Ice will dilute it. Ice will ruin it. We have those giant ice cubes, so they don't dilute it, but they'll keep it cold.
Yeah.
But within that, you're the best way to drink something is whichever way you like it best. If you want to take bourbon and you want to mix it with grape soda, whatever, that's on you. That's up to you.
That's on your conscience.
I guess
that's between you and your maker.
I'm always split. Like my favorite, I love straight liquor. Like me too. Maybe I'll play with it and add a drop or two of water, see what it does, but I don't even want it over ice. I want to taste everything. I love barrel proof, higher. It seems got a little more go to it. But also whichever way you like it best. If you want to drink your bourbon and nothing but sweet tea, that's fine.
Yeah. Exactly. However, whatever vehicle gets it into you.
That's why we have a multitude of cocktails available. I've discovered pretty quickly that most people aren't straight liquor drinkers like myself, so they consume their liquor in cocktail format.
Yeah, I call them wimps because they can't handle it.
You know what? There's some days where I told you if I have a cold, I make myself a little tea, add a little honey, and put my whiskey in there.
That's different. Okay,
there's some days where I come home and I want to have a drink, and I'm just not quite in a straight liquor mood. Now they're few and far between, but I will sometimes drink a bourbon ginger. Now I don't use my own stuff to mix with ginger ale. I have some like the things you picked up along the way to try that maybe you're like, we're not gonna drink this straight, but also I don't want to throw something away that I spent money on. Mm-hmm. You're like, whiskey ginger, why not?
I don't know. I like it. If I'm going to mix, it's with ice.
Fair enough.
And then that'll dilute it enough. And because there are some nights where I just don't feel like having it neat, and because it just, I don't know, it just burns. Yep. Sometimes it'll burn from the same bottle. It'll burn more one night than the next. Maybe it's heartburn. I don't know what the hell I have, but whatever. Yep. So I'll dilute it with some ice and everything. But I don't to take whiskey and mix it with anything other than ice or more whiskey is crazy. Like, you just don't do that. Yeah. You do it with vodka. You could do it with rum. You could do it with gin. Leave the whiskey alone.
Yeah, so generally, yes, but also within that, like I'll come up with an exception right now. Like middle summer, 100 degrees out. You're probably not in a straight barrel proof, probably not even whiskey over ice, like a mint julep.
Oh, well, now you're talking.
Mint julep
Well, now
is an effective tool to combat thirst in the middle of hot summer.
I'm sure it is. Sitting on the porch with your rocking chair and fanning yourself with your straw hat.
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I've never had a mint julep, but do you make them there?
So they are not on my menu, but right now, because it's not really seasonally appropriate.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have julep glasses and everything.
I'll make sure to get one next summer
for sure.
What are the drinks that are in season now? Now we're recording this in November. What is it? November 11th.
So we just went through. Cameron and I went through, and we pulled a bunch of cocktails off. We shortened our drink menu some. I think we have 15 listed on there, which we can make you just about whatever you want, as long as we got what we need to make it. We pulled a lot of the summer stuff off. Lavender Lemonade's still on there because it's always going to be on there, and we started boxing it so people can take it.
I brought some people in once, and one of the ladies got that, and she really liked it.
Yeah. This is poor of me to say, especially as we're recording. I don't know, because I just drink straight bourbon if I'm going to drink.
That's what I'm saying.
I go through,
but the ladies like a mixed drink.
Yeah, and we have a ton of different options of mixed drinks. We have, on top of that, if you're just not a liquor drinker and you're a beer drinker or a wine drinker, we have a little bit of Pennsylvania wine, a little bit of Pennsylvania beer, a little bit of Pennsylvania cider.
What Pennsylvania beer do you have?
Constantly rotating.
Okay.
Constantly rotating.
Nice.
We have an eight tap draft system. We keep a bottle can selection as well. But also within that, like, you also don't have to drink to enjoy yourself at Mason Dixon.
This
Distillery.
is true. I can vouch for that.
That is,
you can just go and enjoy yourself. It's a nice atmosphere.
Yep.
It's very. What were those old warehouses? What were they?
Furniture factories. Yep.
And it reminds me, sitting out in the little courtyard there, reminds me of like being in the Peaky Blinders or something, where it's just I like it. It's really cool. And then you had a tent this year, which I like. Are you keeping that and heating it for the winter?
Tent's going to come down soon. It has been getting heated, but probably I might take it down soon. I keep saying that I'll take it down first snow, but I don't know that I want to wait for it to be that cold for me to be outside for. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how to take the tent down.
Well, you can't leave it up though in the winter.
No, because it's not designed to be able to support a snow load.
Snow. Okay.
And it could, if it got built up and didn't slide off, it could tear the top. That vinyl's pretty pricey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I guess you have to figure out how to take it down.
My other thought was just like keep it heated all the time, so this way when the snow hits, it just melts and runs off.
Yeah.
But I can't afford to do that. The tents are not exactly thermally efficient.
No, they're not. No, because even when you have the heaters and those things, they're not always great.
So a couple weekends ago, a big weekend in town, had a lot of people in, and I turned the heaters on for dinner outside in the tent, and it didn't make it 75 degrees in there, but it made it
livable.
60, 65. So you still had a sweatshirt on, you were comfortable, but it wasn't the same as being inside. And the greater the delta, the colder it gets outside, the less and less I'm going to really be able to do that. And
I don't like eating when it's too hot anyway. I don't like being in restaurants that are like way too hot.
I agree.
Yeah.
I run a little hot to begin with, so I tend to start to get hot a little sooner.
Exactly. Speaking of eating in restaurants, though, the one thing that I love about your place is that you grow your produce on the battlefield.
So we grow grain.
Your grain.
So the way I say this to be the most accurate and most fair, all of our raw grain is coming from within 5 miles of the distillery. Most of it is coming off of Gettysburg National Military Park on the land that we lease. We have 47 acres of the Churchill farm.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Oh, really? Oh, so that's you out there?
That's me.
Oh, okay.
A little over half of it was in soybeans this year. The rest was in corn.
All right. I know where you're talking, where the soybeans are.
Yeah, right across from the peach orchard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very cool. And so when people... So the soybeans are... What do you use that for?
I sell them because they're a commodity, and you don't want to go small grain on the same plot year after year because you're inviting pest disease, all that other stuff. Right. So we sell them. I don't.
No, you don't use it for
no use in the distillery form.
But otherwise, if you go in there, you're basically drinking booze that was made with grains that was nourished by the remains. I mean, if you want to go that hokey.
So I like to think of it as it's a national park in a bottle. It's an accessible way for people to take part of a national park home with them.
Yeah.
Because please do not remove items from the park that you may find.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. But you can. It's an accessible way. It's a fun thing to talk about. But it's also it's kind of interactive. Like you can have a drink. It's history in a bottle.
Like that.
Yeah. I try to put as much of Gettysburg and as much of Adams County into every bottle that I make that I can. Rum legally has to get made from sugarcane or sugarcane byproduct. That molasses is getting imported because that's not growing around here. My malted grains, which are small portions of my grain bill or my recipes, they're coming from a small shop just this side of Philly. But the grain they're getting is coming from just above Harrisburg. But my raw grains are all they're coming from right here. And legally, I think locally sourced is defined. It's within a couple of 100 miles, like. Within 5 miles, we're taking that and crushing that. And I try to stay humble. I try to say I haven't done anything, but I take a little bit of pride in that. I take a lot of pride in that.
Sure, yeah, you should take a lot of pride in that. That's pretty neat. Yeah. Not everybody gets to say that.
No. And then on the kitchen end, mid-spring up until first hard frost, we approach 90% of our produce coming from right here in Adams County.
So, okay, so you're not growing your produce, but you are getting your produce locally.
Correct.
Okay.
This year was the worst iteration of the garden because weather didn't cooperate. And then in the middle of all of that, I had this wedding of mine, which we did all ourselves. So time was a little bit scarce, but the Adams County has so much ag that I can source almost everything that I need from right here during the growing season. Some of our proteins are a mix. Some stuff are coming from Purveyor, but a bunch of stuff is coming locally as well. The most fun one of that is, we cook 600 gallon batches of mash that we ferment into a distiller's beer that we then distill into approximately 40 to 50 gallons of alcohol. But, that's 40 or 50 gallons of alcohol, which leaves me with about 550 gallons of stuff left over. That stuff is spent mash or distiller's grain. We pump that into totes, and then Seth or Dan Snyder come and pick them up, and they finish their heritage breed Hereford cattle on them, and we buy all of our ground beef and a bunch of different steaks for different specials from them.
Oh, wow.
So it's a little circle of life going on.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, nice. I'm telling you, I love it. I wish I can get out there more often, but now that the winter's here, I'll have more time.
So
be a regular fixture over there.
Thank you. Everybody has a lot going on. I love my regulars, but you don't need to come in once a week to be a regular. You can come in once a month. You can come in once every 2 months.
Whatever regular is for you. Yeah.
Repeat visits are the greatest compliment I can get. So I don't put any cycle requirement on that. Just you like what you had, come back and see me again. If you want to shout out something nice on any of the the regular review sites, also great. But just come in. Be ready to have a good time. Be ready to take your time, have an experience. Be nice to my staff. They're going to be amazing to you. And so the customer experience is supposed to be about great food, great drinks, and great conversation. We provide the first two literally. We foster an environment for the third. I'm trying to encourage people to unplug, slow down, and just talk. There's no Wi-Fi. There's no television. There's no TVs up. We're going to add a TV, but it's going to be a digital sign. It's not going to be a television.
Right.
It's funny. I joked about before we opened about putting signs up that says there'll be a $5 fee for every phone we see out. I never put the sign up because, one, I'm not going to be the jerk to enforce that, but two, it just naturally you don't see people on their phone a lot.
Right.
Occasionally see a random text message get answered, but then they put it back down. I like it. You take pictures, check in. That's great.
Sure,
Social media, that helps. We see some of that, but mostly people just, I know what I was trying to do, and I know some of the things I try to do to create that space and that feeling. I don't know that I could tell you exactly how I did it, but I did it.
Right. And I think you could still put that sign up and just do it like tongue in cheek.
Yep.
You're not really going to enforce it.
So I've been at odds. I am at some point. I'm going to hang some things on the walls, and probably it's going to be pictures of the distilling process, so I can bring that back room up front a little bit more.
Makes sense.
But those bricks. Now I can't find provenance on these to guarantee this, but in the era that those buildings were being built, there was 3 different brick kilns in Gettysburg.
Okay.
Those bricks all tell a story. They're handmade bricks from a couple miles away. Like I want, just
You don't want to be hanging stuff in that. Yeah.
I don't want to cover them up.
Okay.
The way, part of the evidence is just the era when they were built and knowing what transportation wasn't available back in the day. But also, next time you're in, notice the bricks. You'll have a ton of orange ones, and then they'll slowly get darker. You'll have some purples and some reds, and you'll have even a couple that are black. Those are indicative of bricks that were fired in a beehive kiln.
The black ones.
All of them.
All of them.
So beehive kiln would be shaped like the top half of beehive, so kind of conical. They would build a fire underneath them. Well, in the middle, the bricks got fired hotter, so they're the black ones. Then you go out a couple rings, and you're getting into the red ones. And then you get out further, you get into the orange ones. The black ones are harder than shit. The orange ones are soft because they never got hit. They never got cooked as hot. Beehive kilns were the type of kilns that were in the era in the early 1900s when these places were built that were operating right here in town.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. So one batch would have 3 different colors.
Would have a multitude of colors. It would have the range. Yeah. Okay. I'm not strictly saying.
Like a gradient of colors.
Correct.
Just based on placing in the kiln.
Yeah, because some got hotter and some got hot. Yeah.
I think, are some of these beehive kilns still around? Like everyone's, like you'll see them on a farm or something?
My guess is there's probably a beehive kiln or two somewhere still around, and there may be somebody making stuff on them. But now,
because I don't want to say names, because people, it was sworn to secrecy. But I went out to Lost Avenue.
Okay,
you ever been out there?
I have not.
Oh, okay. Well then, okay. Another place.
I've read about it. I've heard people talk about how to get there, but I have not gone myself.
All right. Well, then you won't know what I'm talking about. But there's another one that I saw, or I think could be one, down. I was down at South Cavalry Field, and there's a fence, and then there's a horse farm right on the other side of the fence, and right in the middle of the pasture is this kiln-looking thing, something to do with fire.
So I mean, possibly, I don't know. My guess would be no, because this would be more of an industrial thing as opposed to on the farm.
Okay.
But maybe that's a spring, maybe that's an entrance to a root cellar, maybe somebody just had an outdoor
definitely
stove.
Fiery, but it was like way away from the house, though. It was an odd spot to have it. I don't know. I'll have to look closer.
Smokehouse or something. And maybe somebody was. I'm not an authority on brick making as a whole. I just know a couple facts that I know about my building and the town and the era that it was built. That in the Historical Society, there's actually records of people being compelled to sell their homes so they could be knocked down so the furniture factory could expand. So first documented cases of eminent domain being used because those furniture factories were such an economic driver in town that it benefited the town as a whole if they grew and became more prosperous.
Yeah. Huh. So your location is on the location of someone's home that was ripped out from under them.
I can't say my exact location is, but I know within the furniture factories that there were absolutely, and I never went as far as to verify like this is exactly
right,
but that there were some homes that eminent domain was used,
and all of those buildings there around you were all part of the one complex for one company.
My side of the railroad tracks would have been the Gettysburg Furniture Factory. The other side of the railroad tracks would have been the Reeser Furniture Factory, and then the other side of the railroad tracks and kind of catty corner would have been the Gettysburg Panel Company. 3 separate legal entities, common ownership. They would have been the single largest employer our county has ever seen had they been one legal entity. They would have peaked at over 615 people. They would have done that for a little over 30 years. They would have done that in the early 1900s when my understanding is that for the most part, women were not part of the paid workforce. The math roughly works out to, and I roughly, every other able-bodied man in Gettysburg was working at one of the 3 furniture factories.
Huh.
They actually used to have some shared systems because water supply could have been potentially spotty in that era. That's why there used to be water towers there. There used to be water lines running underneath the railroad tracks connecting the two, mainly for the fire suppression system. Because what is the word I'm looking for? Actuarial science in the field of insurance became a big thing, as I understand it, during the Great Depression, because you had these big factories, and it used to be, if you were a factory that made X, you paid rate 1. If you were a factory that made Y, you paid rate 2. But then they realized that they could charge a lower premium if you had some safety devices, and sprinklers were one of them. Automatic fire doors were another. So I found a architect's sketch from the 30s that showed these shared systems. It showed the elevation of the water tower being at least 17 feet higher than the highest sprinkler head. It showed all these different pumps for boosters and these water tanks they had everywhere. So they'd be able to get that lower insurance rate, so they could still operate at what capacity, I don't know exactly, because I didn't write down year by year those numbers, but they would still be able to operate. So they could. The insurance company's actuarial science became a big thing, as I understand it, during the Great Depression.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. I love that whole area over there. It's like awesome. It is awesome, and it's got a cool look to it. Are the other buildings around you empty? What's in those? Like on the others, like on the courtyard that you share with the courtyard. What's that building over there?
Everything is occupied.
It is.
The glass shop has a little fab shop in one of the spaces. At the far end is a company that does paper coating products, all kinds of proprietary stuff, like stopped using lead way before the world stopped using lead, like some real cool stuff. And then the other end is another company that does, they're big in the dental field, but they do a lot of trade show work, as in they build out your stand and your display, and they actually run the trade show.
Sure.
They do some fulfillment stuff. For dental products, and they do some storage of dental products as well.
So everything is used up there. So if you have to expand, where do you go?
I don't know. It's a problem for future Yianni.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I say pretty often to help relieve stress. This doesn't seem like something I need to think of or worry about right now.
Talk to future Yianni.
Yeah, well, he seems like he'll be smarter. He might know more.
Hopefully. Well, he'll be wiser, right? Hopefully. Definitely be wiser.
Hopefully.
All right. Well, listen, you have dinner to go to with your wife, and it's almost 6:30, and
if that's where we want to end it.
Well, no, you want to keep going? I'll keep going.
Let's keep going for
I don't care.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I like. It's when I get to talk about the things I've done, the things I'm doing. That was a little trip down memory lane. Like we started off with some stuff that made me well up around the eyes a little bit, and I'm going, hey, this is cool. We're talking about the history, talking about what we're doing.
It's therapeutic. That's why people should come on the show. It's therapy.
Yeah, there we go. Communication in general, I think, is good for therapy. Just
I agree.
Say what you're feeling. Maybe, filter it a little bit depending on what the feeling may or may not be. But yeah, it's the talking, because we as a society don't talk as much as we used to.
We yell.
Yeah.
We lash out, but we don't talk.
Or we type things, and if somebody says something we don't agree with, we can just block them or not respond, or say something and never have to go back to look at it again.
Yeah.
Whereas face-to-face and talking, I don't know, you get the...
Do you think that maybe face-to-face makes people a little phony?
In what sense?
Well, because online you're hiding behind a computer screen and you can say horrible things to someone.
Yes.
And maybe it's somebody that you even know, right?
Yes.
But you're arguing about politics, and then the next time you see each other, you're still friendly and you act like it never even happened, and they even act like it never even happened.
So that's super interesting. Never thought of it that way as being phony.
But no, what I'm saying is that when you're interacting with each other,
yes,
and you maybe revisit that conversation, you're not vicious like you were online. And that's the phoniness. Because I think online is like basically like being drunk, where the truth comes out.
Is it being funny, or is it being civilized?
Phony or funny?
I'm sorry, is it being phony, or is it being civilized?
Well, civilized is phony.
So, okay, well, that's really going down the rabbit hole. But I don't want to go that far down the rabbit hole.
Why not? Go there.
Because I don't even know where to go with that.
Well, it's phony.
All right. So by you saying that, then I have to go as far as to say, if being civilized is being phony, then that automatically in my head gives being phony some positive attributes.
Okay. I like that. Fair enough.
Because being civilized is being able to disagree with somebody, but also being able to have a drink with them or a meal, and not, being civilized is why when we disagree with somebody today, because we are civilized, to what degree, that's whatever. But when having a disagreement with somebody, it's why we no longer bludgeon the other person to death.
Right.
So it's allowed us to do amazing things and go to the moon, make liquor, have towns that run themselves, drive down the car. Being civilized. That phoniness is why whenever there's a disagreement and why people don't die. So generally, I think people not dying is a good thing. So therefore, I have to say being phony, as we're discussing it, is a good thing.
Is a good thing. So then if, so you're saying then the civilization has basically made it so that it's basically, I hate you, but I will never let you know it, or I'll let you know it, but I won't let it go so far as to kill you, which is what I want to do.
So I think not letting somebody know when you disagree with them is the phoniness part, which and I have feelings about. But yeah, like not killing somebody that you strongly disagree with over something, as in the context of how we frame definitions here.
Right.
I think it's a pretty good thing then.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I agree.
We wouldn't have running water, electricity, the internet. We wouldn't have a stable, or we would, and we would all be the same. It would just literally be the strongest and the fastest of us, and those willing to be the most vicious that would survive. And that's right. I think I've seen movies like that. It's not the world I want to live in.
Right, and like that's the thing is like the Wild West looks fun in movies, but if you really think about it,
but 40 was old in the Wild West.
Yeah, well, exactly.
because there was enough space and opportunity where if you disagreed with somebody, you could shoot them. You could have a duel, or you could just jump them in the desert. There was no forensic sciences that was able to tie you to it.
Exactly. Yeah. If they found your body, if they knew what happened to you,
you may have just been lost and never heard from again, and nobody ever knows.
It could have easily been a wild animal as much as it was a highway robber. Yeah. But that's the thing is like it looks fun, it looks cool, it looks like you have more freedom, which you did. But
you could also die at any point in time. Brutally. Right. Or maybe you don't die and you just live horribly maimed the rest of your life.
Or like just imagine like, having something like cancer back then and dying from that. Like there was nothing they could do for you. And there was a point where the laudanum and the morphine wouldn't work anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, ouch. So, I mean, you're right. Civilization is the better way to go.
Yeah.
But I think according to human nature, I think it is phoniness that we all agree to impose on ourselves and each other.
Yep.
But I think social media is chipping away at that fabric. It's deteriorating.
Yeah.
Because it's starting to go from vicious words that are typed to action in person.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't either.
Because I want to be civilized. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like you get in the heat of an argument with somebody, you're just like,
well, sometimes that's fun though. I mean, that if
a battle of wits and philosophies. Right. Yes, that sounds fantastic. I don't get to engage in those as often as I think I'd enjoy to. I like stretching my mind and potentially being open to another way of seeing things.
Potentially.
But I told you stubbornness was my single strongest trait that got me through everything.
I'm speaking for myself. Like potentially, I'm open to you, but
but I agree with that. That's a commentary on society as a whole, where you used to be able to disagree with somebody. You still can, but it seems that we're being shown more and more examples. If you disagree with somebody about something, then you can no longer associate with them, and it's the vilification of the other.
That's what I hate.
I don't like. I detest the vilification of the other.
And you know what? I may think that the other is a villain, but I don't want them vilified. I want them to have all the protections that I want for myself.
Yes,
and that means they can say their horrible things. They can protest if they want to. They can do whatever the hell they want to do, but don't dare do it yourself and then say I can't. That's what bothers me, is where people are trying to hold rights only for themselves, but they want to take it away from everybody else. Well, and it's like, haven't we been through this?
And that's where that vilification and that dehumanization allows you to say, well, they're actually literally below us. They're not.
They're evil.
They're not sophisticated. They're evil. They're actually not people. They're I don't like that.
I don't like it either, and I don't care who's saying it either. Like this is
agreed. Whether it's somebody that agrees with me, somebody that disagrees with me.
Because there's people that I agree with that pull that crap, and I'm like, you know what? This is where you lose me.
First Amendment's pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. It's because you get to see who's an idiot and who's not. Yeah. Yeah. And then didn't Mark Twain say something about an idiot? Oh, I can't remember what it is. So I'm not going to try. But yeah, I
think I know. It's something about somebody could be an idiot, but you don't know until they speak. It's that those aren't the words, but yes. You could have the illusion of being grand or.
Oh, what the hell is it now? Damn it! Oh, it's going to come to me tonight.
They
like
can
11
think
o'clock.
You're an idiot. But until you speak, you can't. You can't prove them right.
People may think you're an idiot until you open your mouth and remove all doubt, or something like that.
Yeah.
Is it something like that?
Yeah.
I know remove all doubt is in there. Yeah, something like that. But and that's the beauty of the First Amendment, and that's why I don't want that to be curbed. I don't want it to be censored for anybody.
So. A theory. So this is. I don't know why I just thought of this. I know why I thought of this because it's a quote. Booth, Trudy, Booth. Truth, beauty, truth. And who said that? I'm blanking on it, and I'm angry that I'm forgetting because I've actually quoted that and typed out who said it without actually having to Google it.
Say it again. Truth, beauty, truth.
Yes.
I've never heard that before.
It's amazing, and the premise is that things that are simple, that things in their most simple form, are beautiful.
Yes.
And I just thinking of quotes reminded me of that, and I think going back to meditation, full circle, just making things simple and less complicated than they need to be, is beautiful, and in turn also ends up being healthy.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'm actually finding that with...
This is how random the thoughts are in my head.
No, that's
all
fine,
the time.
because life is random, right?
Yeah.
So this is how it works. But this here, I was showing you this is episode 2 script. It's 100-something pages long. I recorded it all.
Yes.
I went through the recording. I cut out all of my flubs and everything like that, right? And then I left a few. I would read certain lines 2 or 3 times different ways, right? Yes. And then I figure I'll see how the flow of the whole thing goes, and I'll pick the one that works better.
Yep.
And then as I'm going through, I'm listening to these things, and I'm like, what the hell am I even talking about here? And I cut the whole section out. Overthinking, too much information, and I cut it out. I end up cutting it out. And there's no better feeling than being able to kill your babies. That's the thing. Like I remember when I started off in production in general, like video and all that stuff, right? And even this podcasting stuff. I remember a friend of mine who had been in it for a while. He was critiquing stuff. And he's like, "You just take this part out. You don't need this part." I'm like, "Yeah, but no. It's when you start out, everything is so important." Yes. Right? You have to keep it all in. And then you get somebody who comes along and says, no, you don't need this, you don't need that. It's like that scene in Private Ryan when they're about to go and he goes to Opham, the kid with the typewriter.
Yes.
And he just goes through everything that he's got in his hands and on his person. He's like, you're not going to need this, you're not going to need that, you will need this. I
was fortunate. I had some great teachers growing up. And Keats, that's a Keats quote. We got to read Beatniks and Faulkner and all these whatever. But I was always... I was told early on, and it stuck with me, is when you're writing, just start to write, and then 9 times out of 10, go back and just delete your first paragraph, because it's what takes you to get warmed up, and then that second paragraph should actually be your first paragraph, because that's where you actually start hitting and giving. Yeah.
It's true. I always picture in my head when I'm writing a big steak.
Okay.
And I know that at the end of this whole process, what's going to come out is something that's cooked, but I will have trimmed that fat around the end. But I know that I have to get through that fat. I have to have that fat in there because it's my brain working.
Yes.
But then when I go back the second time or the first time after finishing it and I read it through, that's what I'm cutting out, is the fat. And I'm always thinking of and remember, you're going to do this. You're going to trim the fat, and it's good. You're supposed to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And in doing so, you will have a more understandable and concise story or whatever it is that you're writing, And that's what I'm finding is, like with the first episode that I had, if I look at the script versus what actually came out, there's probably another 20 minutes of script that I just cut out, completely cut out, because it was just what I needed for.
Dare I say that you distilled it down?
Oh, God. Yes, you dared, and no one will forgive you for it now.
And in closing,
yeah, that's a closing line right there. We should end it on that one.
I enjoyed this. This was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. I had a good time. I always like talking to you, so it was good to actually get it on record.
Likewise. Thank you.
Well, all right. So let's end it there because you did use a dad joke, so we might as well.
I told you earlier I took great pride in mowing the lawn today and getting ready to insulate the attic.
You're too young, though.
I'm getting... I old soul. I've been told by others, and I believe them. Old soul.
Yeah, but... Well, you still have the energy. You still have the physical energy to do stuff. See, that's when you become actually old, is when you come to like 6 o'clock at night and you're like, man, is it my bedtime? Oh, no, I got 3 hours.
I'm going to let you and our listeners in on a secret. I have minimal amounts of physical energy left. That car accident took a lot out of me, but I have mental energy.
Well, then that pushes your body to do the stuff you need to do.
Correct.
Yeah. Because I think of just the amount of work it takes to run a restaurant, let alone, I don't even know what a distillery. I mean, I went on your tour and I was like, what? Like, how do you even learn? Who figured this shit out in the first place? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Like, who came along and said, like, this is how we should do this? Or I don't even know. But the point is that, just to run a restaurant, I know how hard that is. And exhausting that is. So if you're starting with a deficit of energy, and your body's all out of whack, man, I got to take my hat off to you. Like, I don't know how you do it.
My excitement and love of what I'm doing, and sometimes that's even not enough, and then it keeps me going, and sometimes that's not enough. But on the days when that's not enough, I go, you weren't supposed to be doing any of this. You should have still been in bed. This is an extra day. It's even now, like I'm getting a little tired.
Yeah.
I've been going nonstop for a couple of weeks now. Like not a day off. I'm tired. I'm a little more, but I have done so much after being able to just get out of bed and be a little bit less in pain. All of these days are extra.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to look at it.
And my problems. You were comparing yourself to me earlier. Thank you, but also there's a lot of people that have gone through and are going through things a lot worse than what I have, and a lot worse than what you are. And I don't know. Always keep that in mind when you talk to somebody.
No, I mean, it's what I was trying to say is it puts my own situation in perspective. Like there was one time years ago, I was asked to, when I first opened Gettysburg, I was asked to, I think it was the Wounded Warriors. They were doing a ride from here down to Walter Reed, and they needed someone to do like support. So I was like, yeah, I'll drive the support van. So I was at the very end, and now it was, these guys had missing legs.
Yep.
The guy that I was following, who was bringing up the rear, and it was like 200 vets and their wives or friends or whatever. This one guy was in the back. He had a bicycle that he pedaled with his hands because he had no legs. And I took a shine to the guy. I was like, wow, this, and so I stayed back with him, and he was bringing up the rear big time. But I stayed with him the whole time. And every time I'd ride up alongside of him, I'd yell out, you need a break yet? You need water? You need anything? And he's like, no, I'm fine. This is like going up a mountain, you know? And we finally get to Walter Reed, and he just collapses on a cot, and just is exhausted and everything, drenched in sweat. And I'm sitting there with my beer belly, and I'm like, you're a fucking loser. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, how dare you complain and say, I can't get out of bed today, just my life sucks, blah, blah. This guy has no legs.
Yep.
And this was the first leg of the trip, which was from here to Frederick. But it was like a 60-mile route.
Yep.
And he up mountains and down mountain and up again and everything. And I'm sitting there smoking a cigarette in a Cherokee,
And he didn't want to be treated any different than anybody that had their legs, because that's a reminder that there's something wrong with you, and that something happened to you. You're something happened to you. You're not the same
different.
as you were before.
Yeah.
You're different. Not that there's something wrong with you.
I know.
But you don't want that reminder, because that's also, for me, like that's the distraction. You don't. I'm
right.
fine. I'm the same as everybody else. I'm just a dumb schmuck that couldn't find a good 9 to 5. So listen, I'm sure that there are people out there listening that have found this very interesting, and thank you for sharing all of that stuff about your accident and everything. And
We'll have you on again.
Sounds great
fun.
to me.
Yeah.
If anybody hears this that's going through something, if you need something, I'm here. If I can do anything to help you, if not, I guarantee you there's somebody close to you that would be willing to hear you out and give you some help too. Just keep your chin up. Just you can do one day at a time. You always have one more day in you, no matter what you're going through. Until the last. Yeah, that shouldn't be your decision. No, it's not your decision. Yeah. No, it's exactly. It shouldn't be your decision, and it's not. So don't make it. Your Instagram is at Mason Dixon Distillery? Yes. Okay. And you're on Facebook as well? Facebook, Instagram. Have a couple YouTube videos up, but probably not making any more for a little bit because I lost my videographer to love. He moved out of state. Did he? He did. Oh, I know. God. We had a whole thing we wanted to do with him, but that's okay. Just downloaded TikTok. Making some short videos on my own through my phone. Literally, I think I've posted 6 of them so far. So TikTok, Mason Dixon Distillery, is going to be another one where you could potentially see some videos of mine. Interesting. Playing around with it, figuring it out. I'm going to stick with it for a little bit, see where it goes. All right, well, I haven't tried TikTok yet, so I don't know. It generally, as I understand it, skews younger, but I'm finding why I haven't tried a fair amount of interaction. My first couple of videos, we can take this off. We can take this off there. We're good. Everybody listening, thank you very much. It was a privilege to spend some time with you, Matt, and talk. No, I appreciate you coming by, and very quick notice too. I only asked you a couple of days ago, and you're like, "Yeah, I could do it." It's when you declutter and add and remove things that aren't necessary, it opens up opportunities to do things that are necessary, like this show. Thank you. Help other people out, get to talk to people, and do things that might be more enjoyable and good for your soul than all those things that you don't want to actually do. I agree. Well, all right, and that was beautiful. And with that, thank you very much, Yianni. Absolute pleasure. And thank you all for listening.